Hello everyone, welcome to the unit Understanding Violence and Conflict. My name is Scott Beattie. I'm the head of course for criminology and I'm the unit coordinator in this particular course, and it's great for me to finally get an opportunity to be teaching directly into the criminology courses that I'm responsible for. So the purpose of this video is to give you a quick rundown on the purpose of the unit, the way in which it's structured, our approach to learning, and to talk a bit about the assessment. So let's get on with it. Why do we have this unit in our criminology degree? Well, professional life is full of conflict, and this, for people in the criminal justice field, is not just the subject matter of what we do. It's about conflict in society and often about violence, where conflict devolves into violence. But also it's something that happens in all professional life. All professional life is around conflict. So there's sort of two levels to this. One is we're dealing professionally with violence, with conflict, with all sorts of strife. But we also know that throughout our professional lives we're going to be engaged in conflict ourselves, with people at work, with other departments, between organisations, and having a better understanding of conflict and some skills in dealing with conflict is really good for both those situations. And as a result, this unit has sort of two faces to it. One is really around knowledge and one is around skills. So in terms of knowledge, there's been a substantial amount of research on violence, on conflict, that we want to bring you up to speed with, on at least the basics. It's a continually evolving field. No one has any answers yet. But there's all sorts of interesting perspectives on, what causes conflict, what we do about conflict, what happens when conflict becomes violent, how do we manage violence, how do we deal with the consequences of violence. So the first aspect of the course is getting you that knowledge and that understanding. The other is skills. It's what do you do about managing conflict? What do you do when presented with conflict? And we're going to look at two really core sets of skills. One is negotiation, which is how you personally interact with conflict. But also we're going to look at mediation, and we'll give you the basic training to be a mediator. And mediation is really a guided negotiation process where you sit in with people who are in conflict and you help them negotiate their issues. So it's different to a judgment, an adjudication process where someone, listens to both sides and makes a decision. Both parties in a mediation are still negotiating, but you're sitting there as a third party to make sure the mediation is civil and proceeds well. So we'll give you, as like part of this unit, that basic training that you need to become a mediator and an opportunity to practice those skills, which is something which is useful throughout life. All right, so the approach, that's the content, that's the subject matter of this unit. The approach we're taking is based on active learning, and that means really learning by doing, that we really need to spend as much time as possible actually practicing those skills. So as a result, we don't have lectures, we don't spend our precious face-to-face time in lectures. We move that to the preparatory material. You'll have lectures, videos, resources, all sorts of things to do before each week to prepare for each workshop, but we spend the workshop on challenges that actually test your skills. Now these are individual challenges for the first half of the term. Second half of the term you'll be practicing your mediation skills in those workshops. All right, so what the important take home from that is it's very important you prepare each week. You prepare before the relevant workshop, and that you have those and you're ready to go, because we're not going to run over all that material again. We're not going to summarize what's in those study guides each week. I'll be assuming that you know that before you start. Now, in terms of the actual workshops, they'll be split between large group material, where we discuss as a whole group, and small group activities that you do in your groups. And the large group activity will be recorded each week, but the small group activity won't be. So this is if you are unable to make the lecture time at any particular time, having a study group is very, very important, and being able to do those activities with your study group is essential. So we try to be as flexible as possible. We try to respond to student needs as much as possible, but particularly in this unit, it's really, really important that you get those skills, because the skills are very important, and just having a theoretical knowledge of conflict and violence only gets you part of the way there. So that leads, I guess, into the assessment, and a lot of the core of our assessment is around conflict scenarios. So we'll be using, in the second half of the term, you'll be working with those conflict scenarios in different roles. You'll take on the role of the mediator, you'll take on the role of participants, and you'll take on the role of an observer who reports on back to the others on what they saw happening. And to get those scenarios, what you'll be doing in the first part of the term is writing those scenarios. So you'll be using that knowledge you get from your readings and from your study guides and from your own experience of the world to write these scenarios that will then be used by others to test out their mediation skills and their problem-solving skills. Now, there'll be a lot of guidance as to how to do that. There'll be lots of structure into how to write a conflict scenario, so don't freak out straight away if you think, how can I do that? That sounds very difficult. It won't be. There'll be lots of structure to it. And I think this is one of the more interesting things. This is one of the parts of the course you'll find most interesting, because you'll actually be applying those theoretical things you've learned, and you'll actually be able to be involved in this creative process where you're actually creating this scenario and developing these different conflicts and different parties to the conflict. And don't worry, I mean, you're not marked on your creativity for this. You're marked on your ability to create an effective scenario. But if you do enjoy a creative process, it's an opportunity to do something which you'll be able to enjoy a sense of creative freedom on. All right, so probably a good time to then break down what the assessment's all about. Now, you probably best that you look at the unit outline or unit profile before I talk about this. So if you haven't got it, haven't had a read of it, pause the video now, go and have a read of it, and then we'll come back to it. All right, so first component are the quizzes. They're worth 20%. There are 10 quizzes based on the modules for each week. Each quiz has 4 questions drawn from a random bank, which therefore means that you get half mark for each quiz question. This is important because this gives you not only the incentive to do the readings and to do the preparation each week, but also, I mean, it tests your own knowledge and gives you feedback on whether you understood what came out of those readings for each week. These are due at the end of term. I've done that to make it the most flexible for everyone in case you need to get ahead or get behind or arrange your own time around these. But the caveat that comes with that is that you shouldn't leave it to the last minute. It'll be impossible to do if you try and answer those quizzes at the last minute. So I've just put a cut-off date for each of them at the end of term, but you really should be doing them week by week as you go. I think you understand quizzes and understand the purpose behind them. The next 2 components of your assessment are built around that conflict scenario. So there's the writing part, and then there's the engaging in the scenarios part. So writing the conflict scenario is worth 30% of your marks. It's approximately 1,500 words, although we've got a bit of flexibility in that one because it's not really an academic assignment. It's due in fairly early in the term, in week 5, and that's in order for me to have time to mark them and give you feedback and get them back to you in time to actually use them as scenarios in the second half of the term. And you'll certainly then have an opportunity to fix things up and to modify them again before they go live with real participants. And I'll be talking a lot more about what's involved in those scenarios later on. But as I said, you will be provided with a structured format to help you through the process of writing. We don't expect you to all be great screenwriters or anything coming in, but I think it's going to be one of the more fun parts of this course, and it's going to be something that's going to be useful to you for your professional portfolio, because you can actually post these things in there for potential employers to have a look at. Okay, so once you've written these scenarios and had a chance to get some feedback from me on them, we'll then spend the second half of the term actually running through these with groups of people who are, playing the roles of the participants in the conflict and acting in the role of a mediator in the conflict. Hopefully you'll have multiple chances to act as a mediator. You'll have at least one chance in the term, but it's really a good opportunity to really practice those skills and to do it multiple times. When you do act as a mediator, you need to record that session. You need to upload that recording in a format that I can access, and we'll talk about all those details later on. And you write a short reflection of 500 words or so on what you learnt. Now, there's a few moving parts to this. One is that actually recording your performance and looking at it yourself, although incredibly painful for many people, at least at the start, is very, very important for improvement. And it's also important to get over the hump of hating seeing yourself on video. And I've had to do that as someone who records video lectures. It was terrible the first year or so of having to look at myself on video. And you just get calluses to it later on. So the earlier on in your life you get calluses to reviewing your own performance, the better. Because you'll get over it and then you'll be able to use those videos to improve your performance. So you record the session that you do as a mediator, you upload it, write a reflection on what you learned from it. And again, this is something that's really good for your professional portfolio, because you can say when you go for a job interview, I have really good conflict skills, but it's something else again to say, I have really good conflict skills, and here you go, here's a video of me really acing a hypothetical mediation situation. So, yep, you'll get lots of chances to be involved in all those different roles in those conflict scenarios, and it's really important that you stay engaged throughout the term and you support your peers in doing that. And the final piece of assessment is a workbook, which you should be familiar by now as criminology students. So a short write-up, about half a page, 300 words, whatever, for each of the weeks, for each of the workshops. Each of the challenges has reflective seeds to get you going so that you're not flailing around in darkness, to give you some ideas of what sort of things you can talk about. But they're just really short pieces that give me insight into what you've learned. Because I can't, x-ray your head and watch your learning happening as it goes. I need you to be able to show what you've learned by talking about it. And this is also a good process for yourself to, again, be self-reflective and to improve yourself, to be able to think about these things and not just to walk out of an exercise going, I liked that or I didn't like that, or that sort of surface analysis, to be able to come back to it and go, well, this is what I learnt from that, and this is what I think I should do going forward. All right, well, that's the overview of this term. Feel free to ask questions in Teams. The link's in Moodle if you want to. If you have any questions getting started. And the other thing, of course, is always booking. My consultation diary is calendar is linked in Moodle. It's going to be different from week to week because as the head of course, I've got lots of different responsibilities, so I can't really guarantee I'm going to have the same time available each week. But that's not quite good too, because that means the time is spread out. So that you're hopefully you'll find times that are convenient for you, and each week I'll book in my consultation times ahead of for the next week on a Friday, so I can lock those in. So yeah, please feel free to use those. Don't just come to me when you've got an issue or in trouble. I'm quite happy for you to come and have chats generally in those times. I don't get, unlike on campus teaching, I don't get to see you guys, in the corridors or waiting for a tutorial room to become free. So it is useful for me as well to be able to have those conversations and to have those more informal chats as well. So those consultations are available for the more serious stuff, of course, where you really need to talk about something, but they're also there if you just want general advice and just want to talk about where you're going. I think there's a chainsaw about to start outside, so it's probably time for me to finish up. I guess just with the overall message that I hope you'll enjoy this term. I've designed this as something that I would want to do, that I would find to be fun as well as an educational experience. Doesn't mean it works for everyone, but I really want this to be something that you enjoy. But to do that, you need to be very proactive. You need to be really engaged and not just be a lurker. You need to be active each week. And I know we all have different commitments. We have energy ebbs and flows, but that's also part of the whole thing, is learning to even though you got a headache and you've had a bad day at work or whatever, still being able to go, okay, I've made a commitment, I'm going to come along and I'm going to spend this time well, because I'm going to get benefit out of it, and I'm not going to get benefit out of it if I don't engage, and two, I'm going to be supporting my peers and helping them, because this is really a unit where it is important that you support each other as well. And in the video on the first module, we'll be talking about things like safety tools, because we're dealing with some serious issues in this unit, and we've got some procedures to make sure that if things get, we don't look in any detail at any, the actual consequences of violence. A lot of our knowledge is theoretical, but you never know what things are going to upset people, so we're going to use safety tools, but more on that later. All right, so nice small group this term. It's the first time it's run. Good chance to because it's to really get a handle of what you guys are interested in, and it gives me an opportunity to develop material, because I'm developing the materials as we go. You'll notice that not everything's up on Moodle yet. That's because I'm still writing it, but part of that is too, I want to use the that delay to be able to customize things to what you're interested in. So it's a good opportunity for you to have that feedback into the way that the unit develops. All right, enough talking from me. I've gone on for way too long, and I will see you in the workshops.